Well, good afternoon, everyone. I think we're ready to go. First, I'd like to thank everybody for attending this virtual meeting. For those of you who attended the previous one, today's presentation will include some more detailed information since more work has been done on the feasibility report. There's a few of us that will be presenting today. If there's ever any issues with you not being able to hear, we'll go through, Lydia will go through some of the functions to be able to get through the presentation today. So I'll have Lydia enter here in a moment to go through some of the protocols for the meeting. My name is Allison Fowski. I work for WSB. And I'd just like to thank everyone for coming into the meeting today, and Lydia will go through some instructions as far as who else is here as well.
All right, as you said, my name is Lydia Enner. I'm the project engineer on this project. Allison is the project manager. Ed Youngquist is also with us from WSB, an engineer on the project and doing a lot of the design work. And from the city, we have Darren Manning and Ryan Halverson. Both will be available for questions at the end. So as part of this meeting, I'll be helping to organize the questions and the minutes for it. Allison, if you could go to the next slide, please. So features for the attendees, the easiest way to get a question asked and answered would be the chat function at the bottom of the screen. So if you're using your computer for a Zoom screen, you'll see on the bottom black band a place that says chat. That will send out the message, and I'll be answering questions or helping facilitate the question answering at the end of it. If you're on your phone, it looks like there's one person that's on a phone. You can hit *9, and that will raise your hand, and it'll show up on my screen that someone's raising a hand. At the end, when we're answering questions, I'll call on you. Everyone is currently muted. And when you're ready when we're ready for you to ask your question, I will unmute you, and you can unmute yourself on your end as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Lydia. We have a presentation here for you folks today, and just because of the nature of this virtual meeting, I will go through the presentation in its entirety, and as Lydia mentioned, we'll open it up for questions here at the end. So first, to just go through the location shown on this slide here. The project area is outlined in red. It includes Maris Street, 13th Avenue, Hansen Avenue, and Stagecoach Road. The proposed improvements within each road corridor varies and will be discussed later in the presentation. So 13th Avenue, Maris Street, and Hansen Avenue are urbanized streets, meaning they have concrete curb and gutter and some storm sewer. The properties in this area are currently served by well and septic systems, and with the exception of the water main in the northwest corner of the project area, there is no existing water main or sanitary sewer. The project is proposed due to concerns with non-compliant septic systems, potential groundwater contamination, and the condition of some of the roads within the project area. The project has been included in the city's capital improvement plan, utility extension plan, and the feasibility report is being prepared to provide the city with more detailed information about the project. We're still fairly early on within this project as far as design and in the preliminary project information gathering stage. The proposed improvements in the project area include the extension of sanitary sewer and water main within Maris Street, Maris Street, Hansen Avenue, and 13th Avenue through an open cut installation, meaning that the street will be dug up, utilities installed, and the streets reconstructed. The water main and sanitary sewer are proposed to be installed along the east side of Stagecoach Road as well. These improvements are proposed within the boulevard so that there will be minimum impact to the street. The project also includes sidewalks and streetlights on Maris Street and Hansen Avenue. I'll now be turning the presentation over to Ed Youngquist with WSB, who will go over the proposed improvements in more detail.
All right. Well, good afternoon, and thank you, Allison. We've worked with Shakopee Public Utilities Commission and the city to develop the plan to this point. So I'm going to go over a couple of high-level design elements. First of all trunk water main proposed in the project is to be zinc-coated 12-inch wrapped ductile iron pipe. So water main within the street is of that material. Hydrant spacing, again, dictated by SPUC, is at intersections and 400-foot maximum spacing. Throughout the project, there's both commercial and residential properties. So at this point, we have proposed 6-inch PVC sanitary sewer and 6-inch ductile iron water main, again, wrapped and zinc coated for commercial services. Residential services are proposed with the 6-inch sanitary PVC and 1-inch copper. The proposed sanitary sewer and water main are to be located within the existing curb lines, and typically the sanitary sewer will be centered in the road, and then the water main is going to be located 10 feet either to the south or west, depending upon road orientation. The goal is to minimize disturbance of in-place storm sewer and curb and gutter. We recognize that there are some curb in the project area that will need to be replaced, and storm sewer casting repairs, those sorts of things. And we'll get into that as the design moves along. So with that, I'm hoping that people can see the slide we've got here, and wanted to show you that our connection point for sanitary sewer really is at the southwest quadrant of Stagecoach and Hansen there. That's the nearest available sanitary sewer, and what we're proposing to do there is extend to the east underneath Stagecoach with 8-inch PV sanitary sewer, and we're going to run it about 250 feet and drop a manhole right about where that cursor is there. That sanitary sewer will then flow westerly, and that's the maximum we can go with that gravity sanitary sewer. So then from that point easterly towards Maris, we're going to have another sanitary sewer run at a different depth down to Maris, and that gravity flow will then go easterly, and we're proposing a lift station. This is the lowest point of sanitary sewer here. And so that lift station is sized appropriately for not only this project area, but the Boiling Springs area to the south. It's a study area that we're looking at, but we've looked at both sanitary sewer depth and sewer line sizing, and we've got that pretty well dialed in there. So we're proposing the lift station in that location. That lift station will then force or pressurized force main will carry the sanitary sewer from Maris and 13th back westerly, and then we'll end up in that gravity sanitary sewer manhole there. So then going back down to the lift station and heading north, we're proposing a 12-inch PVC sanitary sewer along the center line of Maris, and about halfway up, or about at where those power lines come across, we're going to transition to a 10-inch PVC sanitary sewer for the rest of the extent up Maris until we intersect 13th Avenue. And again, The sanitary sewer depths will accommodate serviceability for the residential and commercial properties in the project area. And we're proposing that 12-inch DIP water main to be located on the west side of the sanitary sewer along Maris. Then up on 13th, we're proposing 8-inch sanitary sewer in both directions, and that sanitary sewer service will extend just past the private drive and almost to the corporate limits on the east side. And then on the west side, we're extending the sanitary sewer far enough to service 2620 Stagecoach Road. We're also proposing that same 12-inch ductile iron wrapped water main, zinc coated, along the south side of 13th Avenue. And that too will service those properties. One note here is we are extending stubs for future extension to the south at that private drive. And back over, thank you, Lydia, to the west side. That water main is connecting into the existing water main there that coming off of Stagecoach. So we're doing that as well along Stagecoach. I'll transition down to Stagecoach. Thanks, Lydia. As Allison had mentioned, we're proposing sanitary sewer and water main in the easterly boulevard of Stagecoach. And again, this is 12-inch DIP water main and 8-inch PVC sanitary sewer to extend up northerly to be able to service 1393, and the water main connecting into the existing water main there at the south end of 2620. A real important point of this water main system is that we are closing and creating a water main loop, which gives you a more robust and redundant water main system. So with the connections up at Stagecoach, and then also on the east end of 13th Avenue, we're connecting into the Savage system with the help of Spuck. So another element of the design is the extension of water mains south of Hansen along the east boulevard of Stagecoach Road. Again, this is a 12-inch DIP water main and it's extended about 660 feet to that south property line of 8610. And that's for future connection. I believe that is the general idea of the utility design that we have to this point. Lydia, can you move to the next slide? Thank you. Along with that, per city design standards, we're proposing, street lights. These street lights are to be spaced at intersections and every 450 feet. So we start off by placing them at street intersections and then 450 feet max in between. And then the next slide, Lydia. Along with this, we do have sidewalk improvement proposed. This slide is the overall city's trail project, and we're showing our project area. This is the city's sidewalk master plan. The next slide, again, just shows where we're located within the city and where the project is. And we've got a sidewalk proposed in this project on the north side of Hansen and on the west side of Maris. And this is proposed to be a 6-foot wide concrete sidewalk. And I believe that is it for me with slides.
Thank you, Ed. This is Allison here again, Allison Fauski. I also just wanted to quick mention before I continue with the presentation that both this, the PowerPoint presentation and the recording will both be on the city website. So you'll have access to this information so that you're able to look at the presentation as we go through it, and then get a copy of it for your own records so that you have that for your file. So this slide shows that the estimated project cost is just over $5.2 million. And the funding sources identified for the project are a combination of funds from the City of Shakopee, the Shakopee Public Utility, and special assessments. And the special assessments is what I'll go into next here with regards to potential costs to property owners. So the first assessment is streets assessments. 30% of the reconstruction costs for Maris Street and Hansen Avenue are proposed to be assessed to the properties adjacent to these roads. For properties that have frontage to two streets, the assessable parcel area is based on the percentage of frontage on Hansen or Maris, as the case may be. So for example, you'll look at, for example, property 19 here. There's a portion of this property that would not be subject to the street assessment because it has some frontage on Stagecoach. Likewise, you look at these two properties here that are on Maris and 13th, and only a portion of those property areas are proposed for the street assessment. Non-buildable areas such as road right-of-way and storm ponds are not included in the assessable area. So the assessable area is shown here in the yellow shading. So you can see here, for example, the storm pond here is not included in the assessment area. The street reconstruction costs are proposed to be assessed with this project. Now, with 13th Avenue being in relatively good condition, the benefit of reconstructing this street is attributed to the installation of the utilities and therefore not included in the street assessment, but is included in the sewer and water assessments. So what we're looking at here, based on this assessment methodology, is $4,581 per buildable acre. This slide illustrates the properties that will be subject to the sewer and water assessments when the property connects to the utilities. As noted on the slide, the property in the southeast corner of 13th and Stagecoach will not be assessed for water because this property is already connected to city water. Similar to the street assessment, non-buildable areas such as road right-of-way and storm ponds are not included in the assessable area. So for both the street assessments, the sewer assessments, and the water assessment, this property-specific amounts will be included in the feasibility report and presented at the public hearing, which will be held later this year. Properties that are proposed to be assessed will receive written notification of the public hearing. So all those amounts will be communicated to residents. It's just with all the different property sizes, it was too much detail to include in this presentation today. But for those of you that are taking notes, again, this will be available on the city website. We're proposing, at this point, we're estimating a $7,895 per buildable acre sanitary sewer assessment and $16,958 per buildable acre for the water main assessment. As Ed had mentioned, this project includes a sanitary sewer lift station at the corner of Hansen and Maris, and that there's an area to the south of the project shown in green on this slide that would benefit from that sanitary sewer lift station when sanitary sewer is extended. Therefore, these properties shown in green will be subject to a lateral sanitary sewer connection charge, which would be deferred until these properties are able to connect to the city utilities. Other fees that are outside that are collected at the time of connection, in addition to the project-specific assessment, are shown on this slide. Note that the fee calculation for the majority of these fees are on a SAC unit basis, and a SAC unit is an industry term to estimate water usage and sewer flow, depending on the particular fee in question. And so as noted at the bottom here are the calculations to determine how many SAC units a particular property would have. So again, these are collected at the time of connection to the utility. So our next steps are, we're at the point where we're finalizing the feasibility report, which is what generated the information that's been shared with you today. And then there will be a public improvement hearing. And as I mentioned previously, all properties that are proposed to be assessed for any portion of the project cost will receive a written notification of the improvement hearing and will include an estimated assessment based on the costs presented in the feasibility report. The next, if the City Council, once City Council provides authorization to continue with the project, final plans and specifications will be completed. At this point in the feasibility stage, we simply have an alignment identified with some detailed information included, and final plan preparation really gets into a lot of detail to ensure that there is a plan set and specifications that a contractor could utilize to bid the project and construct the project. If this proceeds, we anticipate that the council would approve plans and authorize advertisement for bids in the winter with a spring 20, and my apologies, this should say winter 2020, 2021. So we'll probably be into the new year to authorize bidding. And then bid opening would occur in the spring. We typically want to have a spring construction start to a project of this magnitude. So we're looking to begin construction in the spring and summer of 2021 with completion of the project in the fall. Now these are very general timelines in nature. And once detailed plans and specifications come along, we would be able to provide a more detailed timeline for this project. Another item to mention too is that through this process, this goes through many city council meetings and authorizations for the work to be done. And then there's also another public hearing for residents that are assessed for the project when the final assessment amounts are determined based on the bid prices. So again, the next step is to finalize this feasibility report and submit it to the council. And that would also be the time that the properties that are assessed are notified of the public hearing in front of the city council prior to city council accepting the feasibility report. So that concludes the formal presentation. As mentioned earlier, we'd like to take this opportunity to open it up for questions and comments. And as a reminder, here are the instructions for folks who would like to, who have any questions on this proposed project. And with that, I will turn it over to, I believe Lydia has been tracking if there are any questions.
Yes, we just received one from Brian. His question is, will the estimated assessment letter include the other fees related to SAC calculations per property? And what is the date of the proposed letter to be sent to owners?
Ryan Halverson. I'm the Assistant City Engineer for City of Shakopee. I can probably talk about this. So the formal letter that comes out with the public hearing by law does not require those additional fees to be listed. They are in the city's fee schedule, which is available on our city website and approved by council. However, due to the nature of this project, that is something that we could include as you've requested. So we'll duly note that and likely provide all those additional fees with that letter for you. The timing of that letter will correlate to the timing of the city council meeting. I believe I don't have the statutes right in front of me, but we do have to provide, I believe it's over 2 weeks of notice prior to the meeting for that. So we'll make sure that we follow state statute and give you plenty of time to give you notice and make sure you're available for that council meeting. Realistically, I don't know that we'd push this for the late September city council meeting. Most likely, I would think early October. The first council meeting, the first Tuesday of the month might be where we're targeting. So notices would come before that.
So far, there are no additional questions. As a reminder, if anyone has a question, the best way to do that would be through the chat function at the bottom of the screen, or if you're calling in, *9. Oh, I have a raised hand here from a number starting in 612 and ending in 692. I'm unmuting you. And you'll need to unmute yourself on your end as well. For the phone number 612-692, please unmute yourself on your end and you'll be able to speak. It looks like you're still muted, unfortunately.
In this instance, if we're not able to get that particular attendee to ask the question right now, and included on this slide is an option for you to email in your question to Lydia. And if you do not have access to email at this time, you can still send in your question, and we'll ensure that the question gets routed appropriately so that you can receive a response. We just want to make sure that we're answering all questions to the best of our ability.
To the phone users as well, there is a chat feature, so you can ask your question in the chat feature as well.
I'm going to move forward with a couple other questions that we just received. The first is from Jeff. It says, is a billable acre include the entire property or only acreage along the road?
Yeah, I can take this. This is Ryan with the city. Billable acreage in this is buildable acreage or net developable acreage, different terms, however you want to look at it for it. We are looking at the entirety of the property. So for all of these properties, whether in its current use or any kind of ultimate proposed use, people could redevelop, could on vacant lots, could develop those. The sewer and the water benefits the entire property. For sewer and water, and as we have the streets laid out as well, we are doing this on a total acreage of the lot. With these diagrams as kind of broken out earlier, explaining that the street portion, if you have frontage on multiple streets, we're looking at assessing a portion along our public improvements, and the part that is not being assessed is on a different street, and we collect an assessment at that time. As Allison had pointed out on 13th Avenue, the improvements for the 13th Avenue roadway are being included with the sanitary sewer and water main costs, as that roadway has serviceable life left in it. So those improvements, it's being reconstructed prematurely for the need of sewer and water, so those costs are being included, divided in the sewer and water assessments.
Another question here from Brian. It says, what is the typical repayment terms offered on the assessment?
This is Ryan with the city again. Typically, property owners have a couple of options here. When the project is completed and there's the assessment hearing, proper notices will be given, the amounts of your assessment will be provided, the date of the public hearing for the assessment hearing will be given to you as well. You're usually given a 30-day period to pay off any or all of your assessment with no fees, penalties, or interest added to it. If a property owner chooses, they can have that assessment added to their tax statement. And under those situations, the city council ultimately establishes the assessment rate, the interest rate that would go with this, as well as the payoff term. It is very typical with a typical residential type neighborhood that we would do at minimum a 10-year payoff window over taxes. So it could be spread out for that. Due to some of the larger lots and acreages out here, some of these assessments could be quite large for some people. Understanding that, the city council could elect a longer period. That could be discussed at that time. Staff will make a recommendation, no less than 10 years. The interest rate follows interest rates in general plus a 2% markup on it. On our past street reconstruction projects, that was around 5 to 5.5% interest added on to those assessments.
Great. Are there any other questions? Great. It looks like at this time there have not been any other questions submitted. You can either email them to us later. My email is on the last PowerPoint slide, or we can wait and if anyone has any others that they're currently typing in.
Well, thank you, Lydia. Since we don't have any other questions, again, I'd like to thank everybody for attending this virtual open house. I hope that you found this information helpful with regards to the proposed project. And as I mentioned previously, the city has indicated that both the presentation and a copy of this, the recording of this presentation will be on the city's website. So please feel free to take a look afterwards. And if there are any questions that come up afterwards, you'll have Lydia's information is included in there for email addresses. And certainly there's city staff available to if you choose to go that route as well. We'll make sure that your questions get answered. So with that, I hope everybody has a great afternoon and a wonderful weekend. And thank you again for attending the presentation.
Allison, this is Ryan with the city. Can you go to the slide with the fees, the additional fees? I'd like to clarify one point for people.
Sure.
So on this list, that first charge is per buildable acre. The rest of those are by SAC unit. And one thing that I'd like to point out here, it does say that the residential properties are typically one SAC unit. The rest of those mixed employment type SAC units, when you actually go to take a permit to do the building, the sewer connection, the SAC units are actually determined by the Metropolitan Council. All of these sewer treatment facilities in Minnesota, or in the Metro, I should say, excuse me, are owned and operated by the Met Council, and they determine the SAC unit based on the current usage of your facility. But they also look at potential use for redevelopment, et cetera, and SAC units follow those uses. So a car wash, a restaurant would use a lot of water. You're going to have a higher SAC unit than a potentially a small office that has just a couple of employees in one bathroom. So we've made an estimation based on acreage, just to provide you kind of a number here of how we determine that SAC unit, but ultimately that's determined by the Met Council. So I hope that helps.
Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate that clarification. Was there anything else that
There
the
have
city
been
would
no
like to share?
further questions submitted.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Again, I appreciate you taking the time to come in this afternoon or to join us this afternoon on the presentation. And if anything comes up with questions, please reach out. We'll make sure that the question gets answered. Thank you very much.